there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. This week on the show, I have Brian Margolis from Productivity Giant with me for a revisit/update on our conversation from 5 years ago. Brian was the first ever outside guest on this show, and it's fantastic to have him back with us for what really feels like a working session. If you're looking to improve your productivity and make sure you're kicking butt on the right things in your financial advisory business, this episode is for you. Now, before we get to our conversation with Brian, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, the YouTubes, or wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a guest or a topic for the show, just like Brian, by the way, hit me up. I'm basically at Mike Langford everywhere, and you can shoot me an email at podcast@finservemarketing.com if that suits your fancy. All right, let's get to the conversation with Brian Margolis. Well, Brian Margolis, welcome back to the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. It's been 5 years and about 100 episodes since your last appearance on the show. I'm so thrilled to have you back with us. What have you been up to for 5 years?
Let's see. I have a different haircut now. You inspired me 5 years ago. I've been doing pretty much the same thing. I've been doing everything I can to help people earn more by focusing on less, simplifying their businesses.
That's great. I tell you what, I'm actually, when you reached out to me not too long ago, and you were like, "Hey, Mike, I was on the podcast. I wonder if you have any of the media that from that recording." I went back to find the original episode. I'm like, "Oh, we were still only recording audio back then." So that was like wow, how we've evolved. But then the other thing that was really cool was I remember you being the very first person who took me up on my thing that I say it to. Hey, if you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest for the show, even if that person is you, let me know. Hit me up. Love to talk to you about coming on the show. And you were like the first person who reached out like, "Hey, Mike, I heard you're like, this is awesome. It works."
This was the one from 5 years ago?
Yeah. Well, because that was like episode 12 or something like that of the show, right? It was
Okay.
We had just started the show, and the majority of the early episodes were, and we were producing the show for Trulytics at the time, who has since been acquired by InvestNet. And so our very early episodes were first of all, the show was called Valuations. There was a valuations podcast because Trulytics, their origins was a valuation calculator for advisory businesses. And we were, a lot of the first episodes where we're interviewing executives from the company, and we were talking about some of the topics that were very germane to the solution that Trulytics provided to advisors. But I was like, we want to broaden it because we want our audience, which is financial advisors and wealth management executives, to continue to get value from the show, right? Just like all we're all about is bringing value, helping you. And now, as it's called the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast, modernize your business. And that can be through systems, that can be through process, it can be practice management stuff, it can be technology, whatever it is, constantly trying to help people move forward and achieve their goals. So I'm actually forever grateful for you for reaching out. It's great. It's awesome.
I'll take it. Thank you.
It's a win. And by the way, haircut looks amazing. Bald guys unite. We look fantastic. Aerodynamic. Yeah. We're all face, baby. Don't mess with us. Well, let's get right into it here. You are famous not only for being one of the first outside guests for this show, you're famous for helping financial advisors create what you've termed a simple weekly strategy. So let's break that down for members of our audience. Why is your focus on the week? Like, why did you decide a week as a standard of measurement?
Yeah, I mean, after going back and forth, and I've done a lot of systems and different things over the last 2+ decades of working for myself, the reality is this: trying to do something every day, something daily, in my opinion, is a recipe for disaster. Not saying don't have morning routines or things that people like to do every day, developing habits, but as a business strategy, trying to stay on top of something and do it every single day. I just feel like in today's world where we batch things, we have different kinds of days, there's travel, all that.
Mm,
It's just a recipe for disaster. And we don't want people not hitting their weekly strategy, right? Or not
yeah,
hitting, in this case, it would have been your daily strategy, right? The month, too long, too
yeah,
creative. We're just too good as human beings on, procrastinating. All of a sudden the month had just started. There's,
yeah.
8 days left, and we're like, I'm never going to get that done. I'll do it next month, right? So weekly seems to be the most accountable unit of time, both for reality but also for momentum, right? There's something about a weekly strategy, especially if you keep it as simple as I like to do on an index card. There's something about seeing the finish line, right? You know how you
Yeah.
sprint a marathon, these people are dying, but when they see the finish line, they sprint. There's
Right.
something about seeing that you're almost there, right? You get that momentum. As far as what I say, when I say a strategy, the way I look at it is as follows. People define strategy a lot of different ways, right?
Sure.
Different business people, entrepreneurs. The definition I'm going by is as follows. Let's take a step back. Most advisors, most people, right? Their current level of success is based on two things: their skills and talent and their work ethic, right? They go, go, go. They grind, grind, grind. They move, move, move. And there's some kind of formula whereas they grind, they grow, they produce, they do whatever. But when you only operate with those two things, skills, talent, work ethic, and everything's about moving forward and moving fast, you're going to hit an upper limit.
Mm,
Okay. What strategy is in this case is it's a predetermined place, and predetermined is the key word. It's a predetermined place to focus your skills, talent, and work ethic to get the biggest ROI. That way, you're now, instead of playing an addition game, you're playing a multiplication game. You're playing a leverage game. So I like to bring in that third part, that strategy of slowing down long enough to figure out where to focus your skills, talent, and work ethic.
yeah, I love that. Yes, it kind of gets that old saying of like, so many people are too busy working in the business that they forget to work on the business. They forget to think about like what their business. So we get these routines, and it's funny. Like when at the beginning of your describing why you chose a week versus a day or whatever. I'm really feeling the day thing today, so I really appreciate you brought that up because I had an event earlier today, and I won't bore the audience with it, that just borked my day. Like, my morning was going good to start, and then there was a moment of conflict, let's call it that, that
Yeah.
caused, like, myself and my wife to just be like, "Are you bleeping kidding me? This is nonsense, blah, blah, blah." And then there goes 2 hours of my like, so my entire day, if I was focused on, like, this is how a super productive day was gonna be or whatever, um, it would've been wiped out.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly it. You would have looked at it as
Yeah,
a failure, so to speak.
yeah, yeah.
Bad
But
day, good day, right?
yeah, right. But I do like the notion that you're talking about of like, getting that working on the business of thinking about with purpose, like what are you going to achieve or what do you want to achieve and taking that moment. It's almost kind of like, I don't know, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's like you think about like a not just a planning session, right? It's almost like a little bit of a weekly meditation coupled with a planning session of like what are we going to accomplish and how does this fit into the bigger goals?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, most of us don't give ourselves the permission to slow down long
Mm,
enough, right, to determine what we should do, right? Not,
right.
the old effective versus efficiency, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be efficient. I'm not trying to get the most done in a day, the most done in a week, right? Especially if you're working on the wrong things. And by the way, it's not always the wrong things. That's the problem. Most of this stuff that you're reacting to all day, it's work related. It feels like work,
Yeah.
right? The problem is it's probably not the most effective use of your time and mental energy that gives
Yeah.
you the biggest ROI. And so what we like to do, with advisors, what we like to do with professionals is we want to boil down their week, right, to a very short list, maybe 5 to 7 of what I call pillars, these activities that they control, number one. That's important. These are things they control whether they get done by Friday. And we want to figure out when we're in the right kind of frame of mind where they get the biggest bang for their buck. What are those activities if they knocked out by Friday? They know for a fact on Friday they're 1 week further ahead,
I love
right?
it.
It's just a matter of time and pressure.
Yeah.
Most people think they know what those things are, and then you ask them to write them down, and they're like, and they write in kind of generalities. Well, I need to focus more on this and do more of that. And we just don't work that way. We can
Yeah.
think in generalities, but we can't act in them,
Yeah.
right?
I love it. I love the fact you talked about like things that you can control being on that weekly strategy because I think we're all guilty of this. You when you think of strategy, you think of big game thinking sometimes, right? And so then you start
Mhm.
thinking about like, well, if we had long term, if we're thinking about becoming the dominant podcast production company for the wealth management industry, we're going to need this type of office space and these types. You start thinking about this a lot of the big footprint type stuff,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's difficult. Like, what am I going to do like to get there? And you might be a smaller team. Like right now, like I'll use myself, smaller team, right? So I can have all the big aspirational strategic stuff I want. Mike
Well,
Langford is doing a lot of work this week.
you're bringing up, but you're bringing up an interesting point because I separate these activities that I'm talking about that go on to your simple weekly strategy. There's a difference, and again, I call these pillars the ones
Yeah,
you kind of finalize right for your weekly strategy. There's a big difference between a pillar, an activity, and a goal.
yeah,
And most people don't separate those things, right? The goal is what you want to achieve, right?
mm,
Yes, I want to be in front of more of the right type of prospects, right? I want to do all these things. That's the goal. Okay. What we do is okay, great. You got to start with a direction, you got to start with a goal. We reverse engineer when I'm working with an advisor or a team. We reverse engineer that goal and say, okay, to hit that goal, what do you actually have to get done each week? Right. So that over time, it's pretty much just a guarantee. You're eventually going to get there.
yeah,
It's like I said, it's just a matter of time and pressure. And those things, and this is the key, they you have to be able to cross them off.
yeah,
One of the rules of these weekly pillars is you have to be able to cross them off. I can't cross off focus more on getting in front of affluent prospects. Honey, I'm going to be an hour late tonight. I'm spending another hour focusing on getting in front of affluent clients, right?
right.
That's the goal, is to get in front of them. It's like, what are the actions both from an activity standpoint but also an effectiveness standpoint, right?
Yeah,
The different types of pillars that you can do so you're heading in the right direction.
I love it. It is such a funny thing. Like sometimes having somebody point out the distinction between exactly what you just talked about, the goal of achieving a certain thing or focusing versus, well, what does focusing mean? Like focusing, okay, yes, you're focused on this, but what are you doing? Right? Because like
Yeah.
focus is like thinking to some
Yeah.
extent. Like, now one could say, now you could refine focus to like, hey, this week I'm going to have some sales calls. Okay, great. Well, what type of those sales calls going to be? You've got a whole list. Well, let's focus in and only call the ones that are the high net worth individuals versus that type of stuff. But I get your point is really hits lands well for me, I guess is what I'm saying.
And you're pitching me meatballs here. We didn't even rehearse this, but you're talking about like what I describe in the book and in the
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
is I talk about focus management, not time management.
Yeah.
Meaning on any given day, you're going to run out of your ability to focus on cognitively demanding activities long before you run out of time.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so it's not a matter of I got to make sure I spend my time wisely. That's important. It's if I'm going to give up mental energy, if I'm going to give up bandwidth, I need to get a big ROI on it because
Yeah.
we all know there are some very draining things that don't do much for us,
Yeah.
right? And this all has to be, although what comes out the other end is very simple, right? I have these advisor clients running their huge businesses from an index card
Yeah.
essentially, right? Or whatever they choose to use. But the process to get there, we have to think through,
Yeah.
right? So you wind up with something simple, but we have to make sure. Let me give you an example. I once had a client. I was at a big industry event, and everyone. I was sitting at we were doing a panel, and my client was also on the panel, and everyone in the room knew that this client was a big producer, right? They were
Mhm.
they were just top of the game, right? And they were talking, and they someone asked them about their strategy or their business plan, and they actually took out of their pocket or their wallet, their weekly pillars, right? It was like folded up on an index card. I
Yeah.
keep joking about the index card, but
Yeah.
a lot of people, it's so simple. That's what we use.
Yeah.
And the audience understood that, yes, this person's excelling because of the simplicity of their plan, right? They've really simplified what they do. What the audience didn't understand, and probably didn't have the context to understand at that point in the conversation, was the reason they were doing so well is, although there was only six things written on this index card that they had to do each week, these were the right six things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the part, is not just, oh, these are six things that are work related or six things I feel like I should do. No, those were the right six things to do every week.
Yeah. It's kinda like that old Steve Jobs thing where, he says, "The hardest thing in business is saying no to things." And I'm paraphrasing, but, he talked about, like,
Yeah.
product design. You have to be willing to say no to a lot of really good ideas, right? And so when the iPhone came out, the iPod came out, right? Look at how simple they were compared to some of their competing products. 'Cause they said no to a lot of
Yes.
buttons, right? They said no to a lot of other pieces that some people were like, "No, this is a must have." It's like, "No, we have to focus," right? We have to, like, these are, as you point out, these are the 6 right features for this device. If we include everything, A, it's gonna be bloated and way more expensive or whatever, but more complex, much more likely to fail, right?
Yeah.
Focus on these right things.
And I imagine during these conversations you have, Mike, these different success principles come up a lot,
Yeah.
right? Saying no to things, 80/20, the vital few,
Yeah.
working on your business, not in your business. We can all recite these, and they're articulated in different ways by different experts. What we did here, and why I get so excited, to help, is I know 90% of people, and I'm being generous, day to day, in the heat of the moment, hour to hour, with email coming in and phone calls and clients and all these things. I know people aren't going to be able to think in an 80/20 way,
Right.
in a high leverage way. And so what we do is we do the thinking ahead of time. So it's all baked in. And now we have this game, right? It's kind of, all those principles are baked into your weekly pillars, to your weekly strategy. So then the game becomes, can I do these six things every week that are in my control? Because I already know they're the right things. We already did that part of it. And now it's just like check, 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 boom. And once you get to that point, we call it the Friday night feeling,
Yeah.
right? We want you to know on Friday night that you had a great week, regardless of that week's results.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, in a results based business that you have, that I have, that the person listening has, right? The advisor listening has, in a results based business, we go on this emotional roller coaster from what are lag indicators.
Yeah.
New clients are lag indicators, new AUM, lag indicators. Getting a prospect to say, yeah, let's meet, lag indicator, right? So we can do all the right things one week and those things don't happen. And we can disappear for 3 days at a conference, come back on Thursday, right? Check
Yeah.
our email, and three great things happen. That doesn't mean that was a good week. So we judge our weeks based on the things we control,
Yeah.
right?
It's so funny. It's like I always one of my favorite you know uh, parallels to use is fitness, right? It's like to your point, fitness is a lagging indicator, right? Like eating a hot fudge sundae for breakfast isn't going to put 5 pounds on you today, but you start eating hot fudge sundaes for breakfast every day for a week or so, your pants are going to be a little tight next week, right?
Right.
It's a lagging indicator. What did I do last week that made my pants tight? Well, it might have been the Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll articulate it even clearer.
Yeah.
Like let's convert, because everyone understand. I love that, because everyone understands the compound effect in terms of fitness and
Yeah.
diet and
Right.
all that stuff. The problem, the reason we as humans struggle with this, and we are going to, right? We're not, we're built a certain way. Like, I want to
Mm,
work with human behavior, not against it,
right.
right? You're not going to grit your teeth and win for a long period of time. The way to articulate this is, these are things that don't have immediate consequences. And when things don't have immediate consequences, we don't do well as humans, right? If every time we ate that sundae, all of a sudden we saw our stomach bulge out a little bit, right? If all of a sudden we saw a little extra roll on the under the neck or something like that, every time we ate it, we probably have a different outcome, but we don't see it.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's just like with these pillars, your weekly activity, these are things a lot of times they don't have an immediate consequence. And so not doing them doesn't change your paycheck on Friday.
right.
But the compound effect of not getting more effective at something, or not reaching out to a certain number of people, or not whatever, that's what shapes your business.
Yeah. First of all, some of the regular listeners or viewers of the show will know that I'm a food lemming. So at some point in time in the next week, I'll be getting a hot fudge sundae just because if the food item gets mentioned, it's kind of like a song or something like that. Like all of a sudden I can't let it go. And so the same thing,
Yeah.
it
Well,
happens to me all the
as a
time.
gift to you, I'm about to sing the lima bean jingle. Right?
It's just the worst. I'll let out. Food is my thing. So if we start talking about, a hot fudge sundae, I guarantee you one will be happening in the relatively soon. I want to dive into one of the things I love most about what I've heard from you over the years, what I see when I go to productivitygiant.com, and then kind of routinely you've talked about it here is the concept of a simple strategy. Because I think simplicity has a value that most of us don't think about the importance of just it's got to be
Yes.
simple, right? Um, I can't remember who the famous person was who says like if you can't, explain something simply to somebody, you don't actually understand how it works, right? Like you
Yeah. Yeah.
being
Like
simple.
Albert Einstein
It
said, if
might
you
have
can't
been
explain it to a third grader, and again, who knows where that actually originated from?
yeah,
But
but the
yes, the
concept
point is
rings
taken. Yeah.
it rings true to me. Like I should if I really understand something or if I'm really going to be effective at something, I should be able to break it down Barney style, as they say in the military, right? Like break it down to me like so like a second grader could understand this, like Barney the dinosaur explaining something to somebody. And what I love about this concept is, in the industry, everybody's heard it. The average age of a financial advisor is around 60 years old. Now, that means about half of the advisors are under 60 and half of them are over 60. They're also at a variety of different stages in their career, right? So
Mhm.
the ones who are 60 plus, one would assume they've got a fairly mature business. They've got a full calendar every week doing stuff, but they're also at the point in their business where it's easy to get a little fat and lazy, right? To kind of coast and to wake up one day and realize, oh shoot, I need to do some improvements, or hey, I need to start working out again. I haven't done it in a few, whatever,
Yeah.
that type of stuff. It's real easy to do that. And if it's complex and it's going to take a lot of effort, it's really difficult for a person who's let some things atrophy, whether it's marketing or whatever that they need to do in their business. If it's complex, it's going to be hard. And I think the same is true on the other end of the spectrum and probably everywhere in between. If I've got a younger advisor, either if that person's independent or they've joined a firm and I want to help them get to escape velocity and grow their business quickly, right? Their head's spinning at the beginning of the career. There's so many things to learn, right?
Yeah.
Having a simple strategy, I think lessens the likelihood of overwhelm, right? And you hinted, you came up against that concept of being overwhelmed by things. So I just really love
The
this concept.
sore entrepreneur,
Yeah.
scattered, overwhelmed, and reactive all day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the SOR of it. But
I feel like you're talking to me right now. No, I'm just
well, again,
kidding.
what's funny is I'm talking to everybody.
Yeah.
People, we're not naturally disciplined or focused. We're
Right.
just not. I could get into a whole like biology thing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what I'm saying is true. We actually like to be distracted. We like to be interrupted. We're scanning our backgrounds. Most people's ability to focus on something for any period of time, right? And
Yeah.
knock it out. So you don't want to count on that stuff. what I always tell people about the pillar system is I say, look, I will not claim that this is the best strategy. I will not. But I will claim that it's the best strategy you'll actually do.
Yeah.
And that part is the most important, right? That it's the best strategy you'll actually do. It's kind of like, do you remember the old hi-fi systems? Right? We're probably in the same age group.
Yeah.
Like, who had the tallest speakers?
Yeah.
Whose hi-fi thing had the most knobs on it? Right? You look like almost like a DJ with your stereo
Mhm.
system, and you could mess around and get a better sound by messing with the little knob. But in the end, really, there was only one that mattered,
Yeah.
and that was the volume.
Yeah. That's
That
right.
was 98% of it. Could you get it better? You could. But in the end, instead of messing with all, well, you just you turn up the volume, and that's your 80-20 rule right there.
No, it makes so much sense, and it really rings true. I mean, in my own personal life, it's like, what's the best tool, or what's the best strategy? The one you use. If you'll actually do it, because there's lots of different strategies. As you mentioned, you got these 80-20 rules. There's a whole bunch of other, you know, processes you could follow,
Sure.
strategies you can follow to be effective in anything in life. What's the one you're going to follow and stick to? Because if you're not going to stick to it, it's to your point, all these results are lagging indicators of what you did, and so we could getting back to the fitness thing because it's just we could go work out for a week straight, kicking butt, burning thousands of calories, and look up next week and be like, okay, I lost a little weight or I feel a little more on my biceps, but guess what? You stop doing it, you're going to go back, right? And I think the same's true, obviously, in business. Yeah, I can go on a sales blitz this week and decide I need new clients. I'm going to sell my ass off this week. But if I don't keep doing it and keep following up with those prospects, right, to make sure that they make their way all the way through the funnel and down to being closed, it was a great
Yeah.
strategy. It was a great idea.
Yeah. I see it all the time, and it's counterintuitive that focusing on less, you'll actually produce and earn more.
Yeah, no,
But I think we all know it when we slow down.
yeah,
It's just in the day to day, we're just not. I have this concept I have this concept I talk to my clients about called trusting your CEO,
okay,
because kind of phase one of this is figuring out what the right things to do are, right? And knowing that, and then there's actually hitting those things, right? Which is the kind of the whole second phase that we need to make easy. And what I when I say trust a CEO is I say, look, in the heat of the battle, in the middle of the day, that's not time to question whether you chose the right things, because
hmm
you'll always make an emotional decision, what you feel like doing. We have recency bias. Something just came in, so it feels more important. And so trust your CEO just says, you know what? Right now is not the time to question my weekly pillars. Just hit them,
yeah,
right? Just hit them. They're not the only things you do in your business. And then you know what? Later, if we want to look at them and say, are these the right ones? We can, but usually you find out it's just recency bias or it's just how you're feeling at the moment.
yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. What are I ask this question all the time of people in some flavor. What are some common friction or pain points that you would see an advisor going through or that they might be experiencing? And that might indicate they really need to consider this simply weekly strategy, right? Simple weekly, yeah, strategy session and the pillar methodology. Because I'm sure, like, you could say, and likely would help anyone succeed, like no matter how great their business is going or how poor their business is going, let's talk to Brian, crushing it. But there's probably some common things, right? Like, hey, if you're experiencing this,
Oh, yeah. Symptom number one is you are reactive all day. You're constantly changing directions, meaning your day started off with good intentions. These were the things I wanted to get done. And all of a sudden, it's 8 to 10 hours later, and you're trying to figure out where that 8 to 10 hours went, right?
mhm,
Because you bounced around all day like a ping pong ball, right? So, people who are reactive all day. The second one, and this is specifically for business growth, is look, you can this is kind of the misnomers. You can grind your way to a certain level of success. Most of us have done it at a
yeah,
certain part in our career. We've grinded, no plan, no whatever, go, 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 more, more, more. But when you're now at that point where going twice as fast or working twice as many hours is no longer giving you twice the results, now you've hit that point in the curve. Make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of the law of diminishing returns. Now you need to really think about putting leverage in your business. Look, if you're going to have a monster practice, your business will get simpler. I know it because it has to. You're not going to build a monster practice by and I'm talking about you as the individual. I'm
Yeah.
not saying you won't add people, but your day to day, if it can't become more complex.
Yeah.
You can't grow a business that way, right? It's going to have to become simpler. So I think it's those people that are bouncing around like a ping pong all day. And here's another symptom. And, if I'm in a group talking about this, I tell no, don't raise your hand, especially if your colleagues are around. But when you look at your other colleagues, your peers, and you're like, you know what? I know I'm more talented than them. I know I work harder than them. I know I'm better than them, and they're more successful than me. That's the classic talent in park, right? That
Interesting.
means you probably do have the talent, the skills, everything, the work ethic. You're just focused in the wrong direction, right?
Interesting. I like
Being
that one.
good at something is different than being successful. Being a good financial advisor is a different skill than building a successful practice. And successful can mean not just growing AUM, but successful meaning you actually enjoy it. It's done at a speed that you can handle, that it's still fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of people confuse those two things, right?
Ta talent in park. I love that. I'm stealing it. I will credit you though. I'm like, this
You don't
guy.
have to. I stole it too. Everything's stolen.
But yeah, by the way, every single person who's listening to or watching the show heard that is like, "Oh my god, I've experienced that." We've all said like, "That guy's an idiot. Why the hell is he so successful or whatever?" Like every time I talk to that guy, he's a dolt, jerk. We've all had those types of terminology roll off the tongue, and you just can't believe it. It's like, yeah, they're
Yeah.
doing something different because you're smarter than them. You're well, like you said, more talented or just as talented, just as educated as them, or whatever the metric you want to use. What are they doing differently?
Yeah, and in the same vein, and feel free to edit this out if we go, I know we only have so much time, but I can't
Yeah.
help it. One of the things I hear a lot is, Brian, my problem is I'm unorganized.
Mm,
And I say, look, okay, but being unorganized in and of itself is not a problem. It's only a problem if it keeps you from getting done the most important things each week, right?
yeah.
So did you ever notice some of the most successful people are such a mess that everywhere they go, they leave fires behind them.
Yeah.
Everyone's cleaning up after them.
Yeah.
They always forget details. They don't remember people's names. There's always a cleanup crew and a fire crew around them because they're a mess. And those people, and a lot of times, those people are successful because they don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
They're so uber focused on the few things that move the needle that they know all the other stuff is secondary. Now, I'm not telling you to be that person. Nobody
Right.
likes that person. But being unorganized is only an issue if you're not getting, in my case, your pillars done each week. If you're not getting
Yeah.
the most important things done. Now, I'm not saying we can't help you get organized. That's a big part of the whole second phase.
Yeah.
But that's how you need to think about this. It's you want a strategy not to get everything done. You want a strategy to get results.
100%. I agree. Um, Speaking of results, I wonder if I like to ask people this, and it's always difficult because you don't want to give away secret sauce, right? You want people to come to productivitygiant.com. You want them to get the book. You want engage your services. But I wonder if you wouldn't be willing to share. It could be anonymized, some form of success stories of how advisors have successfully implemented and achieved some things that maybe they were not achieving before or underachieving before using your system.
Yeah, I'll give you two types of success we see from advisors who use the system. Okay, and I'm more than happy to share. I think there's on the website there's even some advisor case studies. I think in the book there's some advisors referred to. But the two types of success we see, we have the AUM success story,
Yeah.
right? You know, We've had, someone off the top of my head, I'm thinking added, I think it was like 35 million in AUM in 1 year, after I think they were stuck at like 120 forever. They added 35 in 1 year. So when you think
Wow.
about $120 million business to go to 35 in 1 year after whatever they were in business for
Yeah.
15, 20 years, right? The other type of success story, and these are fun too. I'm thinking of a guy out in Wisconsin right now, gentleman in Wisconsin, is they are already a uber successful advisor by AUM or team by AUM, but we just streamline things for them, meaning we've simplified their business. So now they are keeping their current level of success, but they're not working 10 hours a day,
Yeah.
5.5 days a week. They're now doing it and they're taking Fridays off,
Yeah.
right? Because one of the reasons some of your more uber successful people or people who already have certain levels of success keep working is because it's more habitual than anything,
Yeah.
right? They actually don't know when the day is done, when the week is done, because there's always more to do. And we kind of lay out this process, and it's like, hey, I did the things I need to do. I had a good week, even if it is Wednesday afternoon, right? Even if it is, I know I had a good week. And so those are the two types of success we like to see. If
I
you
love it.
want to grow, let's grow. But if you also want to just a simpler, less stressful business, I'm fine with that too.
And I think those are incredibly great examples because, yeah, when you look at this industry, you ask people like, what are their goals or what do they want to achieve most? Very often it is growth, right? It's either they want to hit a new growth point, and that growth point could be because they're early in the business and they want to be able to make more money, or like you said, they could have plateaued for a while and feel like they're still underachieving, even though they've had measurable success, or they get to a point where they just want to enjoy more life, right? Like, hey, man, I have spent a lot of time away from my wife and kids, or husband and kids, whatever the situation may be, and they're starting to, again, if they're around that average age of 60, they're like, I kind of want to start enjoying things. I want to travel more. I want to, spend some time with the grandkids now. I can't be working 60-hour weeks anymore. And plus, I shouldn't be. Like, I got to start turning over the reins to my team. So I love it. I
Yeah,
love
and a
those.
lot of them aren't even sure why they're working that much.
Yeah.
If we're really being honest,
Yeah.
people when people are reactive all day, you can do work related stuff forever.
It's true. That is true. Oh, that's funny. All right. So one of the things I want to circle back on as we kind of kick for home here, I know we're coming to the end of our time, but because we had a 5-year gap in between having you on the show, a lot of the things we've talked about today and a lot of what I've seen on your website, I know that's changed over time in terms of like, what it looks like and so forth. But I wonder if some of the fundamentals you're teaching or working with have been added in the past 5 years. In other words, have you learned new ways to help advisors succeed? Whereas before, like, hey, yeah, this worked for a while, but we had to make some adjustments, right? And I know we're talking about fundamentals here. And like usually you think fundamentals don't change, right? They're kind of based on first principles. These things will always remain true. But sometimes you discover a new fundamental.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I wouldn't say the fundamentals have changed, but let me say it a little differently. What has fundamentally changed
Ooh, good one.
is my willingness to believe advisors when they say certain things. And,
Interesting.
and
Okay.
here's what I mean. So we have there's three different types of pillars. There's activity, effectiveness, and strategic. And advisors tend to get, set up on um, activity pillars, right? How many of these do I have to do? Blah, blah, blah. How long do I need to do something for? Then there's these effectiveness pillars. And when I take advisors at their word initially, they'll usually say things like, "Oh, well, once I get someone in the office, or once I get a chance to be in front of them, uh, you know, I'm
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
right? I can answer all their questions. I can, da 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 da." And I no longer believe them until we start coming up with some numbers in terms of, are you really as effective as you can be? And here's what I mean. Let me give you a real specific example. Okay. The most important part of a learning pillar, an effectiveness pillar, is not the learning or getting better at something.
Mm,
It's choosing what to get better at, right?
right.
Because we can all improve in everything. But if I'm going from a 5 to a 7 or an 8 in something, in some areas it's like, oh, that's nice. I got better at that. In other areas, it's a monster,
Yeah.
right? And I think a lot of advisors, they confuse being comfortable talking to clients and prospects with being effective,
Ooh, good point.
because they can have good conversations with them. They can answer their questions, make them feel good. They think they say ABC 1 2 3. They actually believe the other person hears ABC 1 2 3 and understands. And one of the things I have seen is when I really hold them to account in terms of putting in some effective messaging pillars, just spending a little time learning the tactics that are out there, we see when we do that, we see a lot of big improvements because they're actually becoming more effective, not just comfortable. And so that is something I have really kind of changed over time and said, oh no, I'm good. I just have to get in front of more. And so now I'm kind of like, all right, well, let's slow down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Let's slow down a little bit. And by the way, most people, advisors included, have never actually studied effective messaging at all. Zero.
Oh, yeah.
Not cracked a book on it.
By the way, you'd be surprised at how many financial advisors didn't study finance in college. So, and I don't say that to be disparaging. I've actually said that many times on this.
I feel like that's the easier part of the business, to be
But
honest.
it's just really funny. It's like, and I've said it like, the average person would be stunned to know, and this is not disparaging financial advisors, right? Many of the advisors got their start in this business when they were called stockbrokers. They answered a
Yeah.
call to come sell product,
Yep.
basically, right? They've evolved to become financial advisors. That's what we call them now. We don't call them stockbrokers anymore. Even though many of them technically by the letter of the law of their license, they are brokers, right? If they are working for an independent broker dealer and they are quote unquote an independent financial advisor, their license is a Series 7 license, which allows them to sell stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and do so for a profit, right?
Right.
So contrast that with a registered investment advisor. They are getting paid for advice, investment advice, right? So they are different, but I don't say that to knock it down, but you're right though. Like the consumer for this business, the financial consumer, most of them know next to nothing about finances. And so when they come and meet with a financial advisor, the advisor's got this, I've got a disproportionate information advantage over you. You're in my office. You're seeking help and guidance. Of course, I'm going to feel comfortable. Of course, this meeting's likely going to go well, so long as our personalities match well. And then when you come on board as a client, most advisors have an AUM fee. So it's recurring revenue. So it's really easy to get, to your point, comfortable with like, hey, the things I'm doing are working. I'm totally effective because
Mhm.
I brought in a client 2 years ago. They're still here. I still get revenue from them every quarter. I brought in another client last year. They're layered on. I get revenue from them every quarter, right? So it's real easy to get in that comfort zone. But to your point, are you being as effective as you need to be, not only for your business, but also for the client's
Right.
benefit? Yeah. Fantastic. Dude, this has been awesome. All right. I really love this. People are going to want to follow up with you. Productivitygiant.com is the website.
That's the way.
What else should they be checking out? What else are you putting out to the world? How can people follow along with the great Brian
My
Margolis?
38 social media handles. No, I think productivitygiant.com is a good home base.
Awesome.
Every way you need to steal my stuff, read the book, whatever you want to do, you can do all that stuff from there. You can contact me and everything like that.
Sounds great. Well, I really appreciate you coming back on the show. Hopefully, it won't be another 5 years before we have you back on the show. Hopefully, it'll be sooner. We'll pick a specific topic or whatever, and we'll like drill down on it or something like that. Sounds great. What do you think?
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me,
All
Mike.
right, buddy. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge props to my man, Brian Margolis, for coming back on the show 5 years later. Hey, maybe we'll have you back in 2029, right? 5 years from now. Hopefully it's not that long, by the way, Brian, before we chat again. But again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm really kind of grateful to Brian for kicking off the whole having external guests on the show. Just so happens that he was the first one to reach out and he did it in the right way. I think I might be a great guest for your show. The stuff that I do, the stuff that I talk about is really good for financial advisors and other business owners to help them become more productive in their business. And that's the way your pitch should look, right? What are you going to do for the audience? So hit me up. You know, I'd like to hear from you. All right. That's all I have for you today. Be nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. See ya. Bye.